Black restaurant owner who claims to support the Black community but recently banned guests from twerking in his restaurant. Now, the gentleman in question interrupted some dinner guests with a very fiery speech saying, "If you want to do it, get the F out of my restaurant because I did this for our people, I did this for our culture." I want to know, is twerking intrinsic to Black culture? Is frowning on twerking actually frowning on our culture? Or are there some places that you just shouldn't twerk?
Okay, so I will start by saying I don't think twerking is intrinsic to Black culture. I do think it's synonymous with hip-hop culture, and hip-hop culture is a part of Black culture, but it's only a very small part of Black culture. It's not our entirety. So I wouldn't say it's like it's in us, for example. It's not intrinsic. I don't think frowning on twerking, because this is the thing, like, twerking isn't mandatory, so that's like the only thought in my mind. So if somebody doesn't like twerking, I think that's their option to do that, and it's also their prerogative to do that. I do think there is a time and a place to twerk. I am of that belief. I really am. Now, as somebody who likes to shake their ass, and I say it all the time, and I've told you about how I've shaked my ass for less anywhere, honestly. However, I do know that there is a time and a place. And so yes, so I know there's a time and a place. Yes, I'm going to stop myself right there before I go on a tangent. Go ahead.
I actually do think it is a part of Black culture, twerking, but the difference is that it stems from African culture, and the twerking that we see in mainstream hip hop culture today is a lot more sexualized than what it originally was. It's literally just a dance, but obviously today it's now a little bit more provocative, but it is something that stemmed from African culture before it is in our mainstream 2020 culture like it is now. And now, like, obviously everyone's doing it. I think I heard the whole speech from that restaurant owner, and I thought it was misogynistic as hell. So I wholeheartedly disapprove. I think he also needs to kind of be mindful of the environment that he's creating, because I've worked in a place where we were serving food and we were serving alcohol and we had a DJ, and when people would get up to dance, we would be celebrating that, because that's kind of, it's showing us that our customers are having a good time and that we've created that environment. But on the flip side, I was reading that the women were doing this on the booths, and I just think that's mad disrespectful.
And on the tables.
I didn't hear that part. Okay, but so that is like mad disrespectful, obviously, to the furniture and to the environment. And obviously, he actually told them to stop more than once. Before that big speech, he was coming over to the table. He came over to the table like at least twice to say to them, "Guys, please, let's can we not?" You know what I mean? So I think for him, he could have literally just come over there and been like, "Guys, this is the third time I'm speaking to you. I feel mad disrespected. I'm going to actually ask you to just pay your check and leave because you're not listening." But instead, he wanted to stop the music and give some BS speech about how he can't expect men to respect women if women don't respect themselves. And I'm like, sir, what did you think Spirits plus a Megan Thee Stallion soundtrack was going to equate to? So like all that respectability politics BS, like, it's not for me. I don't think that he needed to go on a whole misogynistic rant to prove his point. He should have just asked them to pay the check and leave.
Yeah, to be honest, I never really saw it as misogynistic or misogynoir, but yeah, I think you're definitely right. I definitely think it was, but I don't think it was in the stereotypical sense. I think I saw much more the respectability politics of it, in regards to him trying to say there's a certain way that he thinks Black people should act within his restaurant, a certain way that he thinks is acceptable. And I think that's the part that I really struggled with in what he's saying, because I think that respectability politics can be rife within the Black community sometimes. Like, I have been a partaker of it as well. Like, you're seeing someone, you're like, man, they're just letting down the side.
Literally. That whole mentality. Like, people need to grow out of that.
Yeah. Like, it all comes into it, where we feel like there's certain behaviours that we as Black people shouldn't be partaking in. And I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but I'm going to come back around, so bear with me, ladies. But when I watched I May Destroy You on TV with Michaela Coel, like I had a real problem with how messy she was. I'm like, she is one hella messy black woman, like her character. And it made me feel really uncomfortable because I'm just like, you can't be this messy. And I had to go and sit and think about it. I'm just thinking, well, I'm thinking like as a black woman, like as our representation, with all the things that people already throw at us, like I don't feel like I can afford to be that messy in life as her character was. And my point is she's trying to show, well, we can be messy and we can be this and we can be that. And you have to really start to check yourself, like this guy in the restaurant is like, where do these thoughts come from that as black people it's beneath us to twerk, or whining is beneath us, or being a rapper and having low trousers and wearing sliders and wearing a do-rag, that's beneath certain of us. And if we want to go higher up the socio-economic scale, or we want to get into certain circles, we've got to leave that sort of lower class black behavior behind. So I think that he really needs to check himself in terms of that. But I do think that there is a time and place to twerk. And I'm not saying twerk everywhere, because I wouldn't twerk in church. I can't even twerk. I'm very sad about it, like I would like to. So let's just break the myth that not every black person can dance and everyone can twerk. I can dance, I can't twerk. I'm just saying that.
Anissa can, though. We've seen the videos.
You have not seen no videos of me. You have not seen absolutely no videos. It's a lie.
But can you twerk?
It's neither here nor there. But my point is...
I feel like me and Anissa, me and Luanda have gone on some big sharing moments.
Oh my God. Okay, if you think it's
friend of a guy that I knew, it's your turn.
Anissa,
okay, do you know what? I will give you a twerk story if it makes you feel better. Somewhere where I twerk, but I should not have been twerking.
I'll give you a twerk and then
no. Absolutely not. My knees are not feeling strong today, so absolutely not. One thing I just want to say quickly though, Sophie, I definitely agree with you. I think there's some stuff there that he needs to unlearn, but it's just one of those things. It's the weight of black people. It's kind of like we shouldn't say, oh, you shouldn't do that because you're letting down our side. But unfortunately, the way that we have been stereotyped and viewed is if one black person done wrong, then people have stereotyped us. And so then we kind of learned that behaviour, like, okay, if he's doing it, then they're going to think we're all like that. So it's just a behaviour that I think we just need to unlearn. And I really wish, I'm with Luanda, that he did not go on that misogynistic rant, because he didn't need to. All he needed to say is, you lot don't have any decorum, come out of my restaurant. Yeah. That's all he needed to say. Leave. And because for me, it's like, it's a restaurant. Even if, listen, I go to a restaurant called Cotton's in Vauxhall. It's a Caribbean restaurant. Now, when they're playing Spice, This Is How I Like It, I do not go on the table and start losing myself crazy, because it's a restaurant. Now, if it was a bar, or if it was a lounge, or if it was a club, then yes, I would dance, but not at a restaurant. Even if they're playing that kind of music, it's still a restaurant. Like, in my mind, it's like, you wouldn't get out on the table and start twerking in Hakkasan, so why would you do it in this man's restaurant? Like, that's my thought. But let me get onto my twerk story. Now, when I was a younger lass, I was in school. I think I was in year 10. Maybe I was in year 10, and I ended up getting excluded over this whole twerking fiasco, because basically, long story short, right, we had been listening to Britney Spears, me and these girls. They were my friends, but they weren't my main group of friends. But anyway, we were listening to Britney Spears, but we all liked Bashment. So then we thought, you know what, we're going to be the Bashment Britneys. That's what we decided to call ourselves for the day. And so we rolled our tops up like Britney does in Hit Me Baby one more time, and then rolled our skirts up. I don't know what provoked us. We were in the middle.
Her, mate,
exactly.
Pop culture.
We went in the middle of our ICT lesson. We decided to get up on the tables on top of the computers, and we just went out for a full performance. It was a full performance. Now, our teacher had left the room, but we were just giving it. There was about 5 of us. We were giving a full performance, baby. Anyway, he came back in with the assistant head teacher. And they were like, oh, we've been watching you on CCTV. You like trying to damage property. You're being inappropriate, because obviously we went to a Church of England school. So, you know, we had a priest, and we took communion. It was a very strict school. Anyway, long story short, we then ended up getting excluded over the whole fiasco. But it was only for a couple of days, so it was fine. Now, even now, I still don't feel like what I was doing was wrong in my mind, okay? Because a performance is a performance, honey. And if I slayed it, I did that. But I do understand that it was not appropriate in the middle of the IT lesson. And I had to learn that upon reflection. I mean, can you imagine going home to tell your mum, hey, mum, guess what? I got excluded. But you know what? Thank God for my mum, because she was absolutely fine about it. She understands that people are haters, so it was fine. But everybody else's mums were not that understanding. And that was when I learned, guys, there's a time and a place. Even though I'm having a good time and I think it might be appropriate for me to get up and shake, it's not always the time. So there's my sharing.
You guys knew that it was the wrong time to be doing that, and that's why it was giving you thrills, because you were 14 years old, and if you thought it was the right time and place, you would have done it with the teacher in the room. You were just being class clowns. It wasn't like, oh, hey, I thought this was going to be fine. The priest comes in and you were like, no, but you don't like bashing at Britney, dude? Like, I thought you'd be okay with this. You knew it wasn't going to be okay, and that was the thrill. And
I didn't know if it was not going to be okay. We were just having a good time.
Do you know what? School, you waited for the teacher to leave, and you were surprised.
I was surprised that they saw us on CCTV. Absolutely, Luanda.
Because you thought it was awful.
I mean, I was surprised by that turn in the story as well. But like on this whole thing with like appropriateness and where's the right time, it really makes me think. Part of me feels like, are we only down on twerking and whining in certain environments because we've been told that things that come from black culture aren't as good as things that come from white European culture? Because it's usually things that have to do with our culture that aren't, fit for somewhere. So let's say we went to like an upscale restaurant and then like some Megan Thee Stallion came on and they were playing it quite low and they were just kind of like, oh, I'm going to twerk. You'd be like, oh, this is really upscale. It's not a good time. But let's say, for example, some Beyonce came on in the same restaurant and Jonathan and I were just like, oh, it's our anniversary. And we got up and we decided to hold each other and to sway and just do a two-step. People would probably be like, oh, that's so lovely. I doubt they'll be like, get out of here. That's so inappropriate. How dare you? And I think it's because we have been made, not us, but black culture has been demonized so much that things that relate to us as a culture, like I'm not saying that twerking is synonymous, but you see a lot of times within black culture, or whining, or lovers rock dancing, or the Harlem Shake, or whatever it is that you do. I think it's always gonna get, a tougher rap than other things. So some of it, I just feel like it's because our culture is demonized.
Yeah, completely.
And because
I think so as well. And that's say that again.
And because our culture is over sexualized, so
right, I think
takes to another level.
Because the man, what he was saying, he's like, oh, I'm doing this for us. Like, obviously, he's trying to show black people, and he even said this himself, like he's trying to show black people, you can own a restaurant, you can do this, and you can do that. And it is because we're so lumped together that we feel like everyone represents everyone else. And that's why whenever I speak about privilege and I'm trying to explain it to like a white person, I always try to explain that when you're born with a blank slate. Like people don't have like pre-existing notions of what you're going to be like, but with black people it's almost as if we spend our whole lives trying to distance ourselves from the stereotypes that you had on me before I was even on the earth. And so with something like this, like that's why I found it so misogynistic, because he was saying to the women, how can I expect these men to respect you if you don't respect yourself? But again, like Sophie pointed out, if you were doing the tango, he wouldn't say that you have no self-respect because you're doing the tango. And it's only because of the way that we view the black culture as degrading, as ratchet, as ghetto. That's why we're saying to these people, you can't be doing that. Like, you're embarrassing me by you doing that, even though you aren't me, you're embarrassing me. And so this is why we need to just kind of like allow all communities of color, all people of color, all highly melanated people to have individualism, because we don't have that right now.
Yeah. And I think as well, especially with what he was saying about, men, how do we expect men to like respect you if you do this? And I'm like, men should just respect us anyway. Yes. Like that sort of link that he's making between what I do should make you respect me. No, like you should just respect women anyway, and I should just respect men anyway, like regardless. And I had a real issue with that. And I think in terms of twerking or certain dances in the black community being over-sexualized, like as Luanda was saying, that from the study of black feminists. Now, I don't know how true it is, but they're saying that twerking is, linked to deities in Brazil and Cuba and things like that. And those are the origins of it, as Luanda touched on earlier. But it wasn't sexual then. And I think it's something else in our culture that has just been very sexualized, because I was talking to a friend about this, and he is from Ghanaian descent. And I went to him, you've seen the old aunties dancing and winding up at the wedding. He was just like, oh my days, literally. Like, you go to my sister-in-law, she went to a wedding of like some church people, and she was like, I saw like the elder winding down in the circle.
Yes,
and I'm
honey.
like, because it's cultural to them. It's not dirty. It's not sexual. It's a cultural thing, and they don't think something badly about it. But when we take it into the West, suddenly me doing a little shakedown and like suddenly it's kind of like, oh, it's provocative because we're already told as black women we're provocative and we just want sex and we're promiscuous. So I think that this needs a lot of tearing down of sexual tropes, of black tropes needs to happen. And this guy really needs to check himself, because when he's telling people don't wear do-rags, don't wear sag, like for me, I'm just like, dude, let's just reframe what it means to be black. It's not those things.
Yes, and when he used the words classy, because he had an interview after this and he was like, we just need to be classy. And so I'm thinking, what you in your mind, you're actually saying what we need to do is assimilate, because actually who is telling us what is and what isn't classy? You're gauging us and what we are doing against mainstream or against white culture, and that's where you're finding your classy gradient, and you're thinking over here's classy and over here is ratchet. And so you just need to just do a lot of work, bro. Do a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, I need to do the work as well. We all need to just do the work, and it's very difficult to separate ourselves from something we've been told all the time. But hey, do the work. And ladies, I want to move on to something. What you saying, Anissa?
I'm just thinking. Sorry, go ahead. No, move on.
Are you sure?
No, go.
That because sounded like there was something very interesting there on your mind.
I think the way he's went about it has been completely wrong, and he's focused on the complete wrong point. But I think there are some truths in the situation of it's okay if you would like a more upscale restaurant, and so for example, like, you wouldn't want people to come to a restaurant in tracksuits. I'm not saying black people wear tracksuits, but I'm saying is you wouldn't want whites in tracksuits, you wouldn't want Indians in tracksuits, because your restaurant isn't the restaurant that has I think, like, if you have a business, you can set the parameters in it. But I think where he went wrong is he then basically said all the things that shouldn't be done. He made that attributes of black people, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sure if a white woman got up on the table and started twerking, that would have been an issue as well. And I wish he just didn't make it about race. It didn't make it about respecting women. Just that I have a business. This isn't my vision for the business. Please don't do this. This is what I really wish he would have just said. So that's what
this is exactly why I started my statement with he needs to pay attention with the environment that he's creating. Like, honestly, you're coming up here having groups of people. You want to have like a liquid brunch. You want to be serving me rum shots, and then you want to pay Buddy by Megan Thee Stallion. What do you think is going to happen?
No, but Luanda, liquor plus Megan Thee Stallion
environment.
But liquor plus Megan Thee Stallion doesn't necessarily create that environment.
Let's not be silly.
No, it doesn't necessarily create that environment. Yes, there's a likelihood it would, but I don't want to say it necessarily does. I just think he handled it wrong. But I'm not going to lie, if I had a restaurant and I didn't want it to be like a Nando's, I wanted it to be like an Oblix, then I would put certain parameters in place, not for black people, but just for white people, for everyone.
But those parameters also need to be within the environment as well.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that.
I went to eat with my family a couple of months ago, and like we went to an upscale restaurant, and they were like, Luanda, you can't wear your trainers, just put on some boots. And I was like, oh. But then I went there, and the whole environment, I would have felt weird if I was wearing my trainers, because you've set it up to make me feel like, okay, this is kind of like, this is not the level that I would turn up to, like rocking jeans and trainers. I need to put on a dress, I need to put on some heels, because you've created that environment. But he is creating a certain environment, like a turn-up club environment with a DJ and with cocktails and all of that stuff, then telling people don't act like you're in a club. But you've made it feel like I'm in one. So that's where I'm saying, if you want a different restaurant, then you need to create a different restaurant.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I get you. Okay, yes.
Do you know what?
Sorry, Sophie, not to interrupt.
No, it's fine, because I was going to say, I don't know. I agree that there's a certain code of behaviour, and he would have said something if the people were white. But do I think that he would have told them to get the F out? I don't think he would have done that if it was a bunch of white women. I honestly don't. And I think, again, with the dress code, I agree. But when he's saying about do-rags and sliders, yes, he's talking to everyone, but he's specifically talking to things that are synonymous.
Yes, I don't think he should have made it with blacks.
So